you feel about single-sex schooling?
Well, I know myself. I grew up in a public school system, so I was dealing with men and women and boys and girls all throughout my high school and all the way from pre-K and kindergarten up through when I graduated. I think that it was a good experience for me to learn in like a professional and a casual manner, like how men and women work together. I don't think if I would have had that, I would have been as successful and confident as I am now. And I know my dad owns a small business, and I know that like through that, he's dealt with students who are from single-sex schools, and I know that they haven't been as confident and comfortable in the different environments they need to be in. It's hard to adapt to being around men and women all the time if all you've known is all men, all women. I know that he struggled with that and helping them adapt and helping them be comfortable. And I don't think that that's something as an employer you should have to do. So if you are brought up throughout single-sex schools, it's not going to be as easy as a transition as it would be in public schools.
Thank you.
This is Patrick, and he is going to tell us about his experiences with a gender-segregated classroom.
So hi, my name is Patrick. I went to an all-boy high school in Omaha, Nebraska, and my experiences with it were positive. I thought it was a lot easier to focus in the classroom, not having girls in there. The high school was just kind of known for being like a top high school in the state, and like up in Omaha, we have like a lot more like all boy and all girl schools, so it's easier to, kind of pay attention. Like those are kind of like the higher schools academically, kind of just there's not as much to worry about, and then it's just been kind of all positive. Like classes weren't that big. There's about 20 people on average. Some classes were smaller, and so just it was all around positive.
Awesome. For transitioning here to OSU with girls in the classroom, has that been different or has it been an easy transition for you?
I mean, I've just found it easy. I don't really view it any differently, and just I don't know. I don't say like that it was a distraction unless you kind of knew your friends, coming from high school and all that. But I would say it's been pretty smooth.
Do you have any reservations, or would you like to send your kids to a gender-segregated classroom when you're older?
I mean, I think I would be for it just because like the academics are better, than like it's easier for them to do better in school and they won't be as distracted. And plus, I mean, like they'll still be around their friends and like they can hang around with like their friends from like grade school on the weekends, or friends they make in high school from other schools, whether it be all girl or just co-ed schools.
Thank you.
All right, I'm here with local resident Stephen Spencer, who grew up in Tulsa at an all-boys school. Stephen, how do you think that affected you?
Well, it was a really great experience. I mean, just from the ages of about 10 years old to 18, I didn't really see very many women except for the lady who cleaned out the stalls in our restrooms there. But yeah, it is. People say that you have problems talking to girls if you aren't in class with them. But and that's true. But here's the thing, if you're trying to find a wife, you don't really need to know how to talk to girls, because like my parents are trying to arrange a marriage, and although like no one does that in the United States anymore, and I can't find like an American wife, like we're looking at some mail order brides in Russia, and like I don't know, a few arranged marriages from like India and Pakistan and places where they do that. I've Skyped a couple of them. They seem pretty cool, but yeah, it's been a great experience, really.
All right, thanks, Stephen.
How would you feel about your future child being educated in an all-girls or an all-boys school?
I think that I disagree with that. I want my child to be able to grow up and mature with both boys and girls. And also I think that it would affect their social skills if they grew up in an all-girls school or went to an all-boys school. So.
Good afternoon, everyone. Currently, we're in a co-education school, and there are all kinds of people around us. However, have you experienced that your parents sent you to the gender-segregated school and you had to sit in a classroom with only boys or girls? Well, my name is JP. From rampages in the US during the 20th century in the US, women began integrating into all-male colleges, and at the same time, the all-female school remained segregated. From educationworld.com, the first public middle school in America to offer separate classes for boys and girls opened the day of 1999 school year. In addition, from gradeschool.org, you might find specialized curriculum such as hip-hop dance and yoga course in single-gender school, and gender-busting courses, something like boys learn skills traditionally associated with women, which are sewing and cooking, and girls learn how to build a robot instead of PE class. Although we did not experience a single-gender education before, but we do research about it and learn a lot from the information that we look for on the internet. Today, we're going to talk about the problems that we found during the research about segregated gender school and why we think that gender segregated school is not benefit for students. Now, I'll leave you to Lauren and let her tell you what problem that we found and why do we think students is not benefit from the gender segregated school.
Thanks, JP. I'm Lauren Eberhardt, and there's been a movement in the public schools to increase the number of gender-segregated classrooms. In 2002, only 11 public schools in the United States had gender-segregated classrooms, but as of December 2009, there's been more than 550, a quote from David Holthaus. Sex-segregated education is deeply misguided and often justified by weak, cherry-picked, or misconstrued scientific claims rather than by valid scientific evidence. There is no well-designed research showing that single-sex education improves students' academic performance, but there is evidence that sex segregation increases gender stereotyping and legitimizes institutional sexism, an opinion by Michael Kimmel of CNN. Also, in David Holthaus's article, he paints a very vivid picture of a middle school in Alabama. Hankins teachers were directed to create a competitive, high-energy classroom for boys and cooperative, quiet classroom for girls. Boys were taught to have heroic behavior, while girls were taught to learn good character. 6th grade language arts exercises called for boys to brainstorm action words used in sports, while girls were supposed to think of words for their dream wedding cake. Electives were also gender specific. Boys took computer applications, while girls took drama. No exceptions. This was a mandatory implementation from the school without even a parental warning. An obvious problem is the fact that the real world is not segregated by gender. At the same point, those children are going to have to figure out how to work together with the opposite gender of them. Shouldn't we give them the advantage to learn these skills at a younger age? Another problem is the idea of gender-segregated schools is based off the ideology that boys and girls learn differently. This can be true in some cases, but not every girl and every boy fits neatly into those two categories on the basis of learning. I am sure most of us in this room don't learn the exact same way, so why should we subject these kids to a very rigid way of learning? Some of you watching may have gone to a gender-segregated school, but regardless, we are all growing up and we have the possibility of having our own kids or someone close to us having kids, and the rise of this epidemic will greatly affect them. We believe that the solution to stop the increase of gender-segregated schools and put the time and effort into being able to educate all kids in the same environment, and to give them the lifelong skills of communication and collaboration they will always need. Now to Landon to explain the evidence that shows learning in segregated classrooms based off of gender can be beneficial, but does it outweigh the consequences?
In the past, education was only available to boys. When girls began to be educated, they had to attend all-girls schools. Eventually, schools became co-educational, and this style is the most popular type of schooling today. Recently, though, single-sex schools have made a comeback, and this has raised the question of whether they are actually better than co-ed schools. When boys and girls are in the same class, all is well until they start to experience a range of emotions because of the opposite sex. When this happens, they can lose focus on their goals, and as a result, their studies naturally Life already has too many distractions as it is. So shouldn't we minimize one of them for the sake of education?
Wait a minute. Emotions such as love don't have to be distractions. For many young people, wanting to impress others can actually motivate them to work harder than usual. Their grades improve, and they might even grab the attention of that special someone.
Okay, fine. Emotions perhaps could motivate some teens, but remember, all teens have to go through puberty. Their bodies and voices change. Their emotional ups and downs become extreme. Many feel shy or even ashamed during this time, and they can't understand why. A single-sex environment would minimize their discomfort because they wouldn't have to deal with the opposite sex during this challenging time.
True, but remember that after students graduate and enter the real world, everything is, well, co-ed. People aren't separated by gender. Single-sex education doesn't prepare students for this. But in a co-ed setting, teens learn how to socialize and interact with one another under adult supervision. School isn't just about learning academic knowledge. It should help them prepare for society as well. For a brighter future, co-education lights the way.
I really don't think so. Why don't we ask some students? What type of school are you attending?
With the current push for education reform, many schools are experimenting with the solution that separating boys and girls will actually help them learn better, just like Lawrence said. However, we don't think that this is the best solution. We think a better solution is keeping schools integrated with boys and girls in the same classroom. And our reasoning is so boys and girls develop good social skills. And that's because, kids growing up need to understand that others think differently than they do, and because that's a vital skill to succeed during the rest of their lives. Studies have shown that separating genders in the learning environment can actually be psychologically detrimental to kids. The Washington Post says that students that interact mostly with the same sex develop increasingly narrow skill sets and interests that can actually perpetuate gender stereotypes and perpetuate sexism, because it insinuates that girls are only good at certain things and boys are only good at certain other things. In addition, a reporter for The Guardian who grew up going to an all-girls school said that girls who grow up in that environment can actually develop the mindset that they can only flourish in a boy-free environment, and vice versa, that boys can only flourish in a girl-free environment. And that's just not true, and it's not good for kids to grow up with that mindset. So gender-segregated schools teach kids that they have to learn in certain ways, that they have to focus on subjects and careers that are befitting to their gender, and that boys and girls can't be good at the same types of things. However, we think that keeping schools integrated would teach kids, that boys and girls can perform equally in the same types of careers. That it would teach them how to understand different points of view, teach them how to communicate their thoughts and feelings better with each other, and would teach them to resolve conflicts better. And these are all vital, real-world skills that we all need. And for proof of this, you can look at all the countless schools in America that are co-ed, just like Stillwater Middle School behind me, that they're performing well despite having boys and girls in the same classrooms. And in fact, there's no actual scientific evidence that supports that separating genders improves academic performance, which is a common objection, or a common reason that people want to separate genders in classrooms is improved academic performance. But according to Science Magazine, the studies that support separating genders actually often cherry pick and misconstrue their results, and so they can't be actually taken as true scientific results. So basically, there are legitimate, tangible downsides to separating the genders in classrooms, in that boys and girls won't develop the right social skills, but there are actually no scientific, tangible advantages to separating boys and girls. Another practical example, I grew up in a co-ed public school, and I turned out just fine, and now the only reason that I can't talk to girls is severe anxiety. It might have been too much information, but anyway, so we believe that the solution is keeping schools integrated in order to make sure kids have proper social skills. And to now over to Anna to discuss what possible future of education would look like. Thank you.
Hi, Anna Hairston here, continuing our ongoing discussion about the possibility of gender-segregated classrooms in the United States. What would our society and future workforce look like after a transition to all gender-segregated schools? One middle school in Alabama is challenging that question by forcing gender segregation on its students beginning in 2010.
Can you imagine going to school where there are separate classrooms for boys and girls? The American Civil Liberties Union has asked the United States Department of Education to look into gender-based segregation in Alabama's Huffman Middle School and another school in Idaho. The group calls the classes unlawful. These single-sex classes at the Alabama Middle School began in 2010 and continue to take place. Students wanting to be placed in coeducational rooms are forced to transfer to a different school. The American Civil Liberties Union has filed an official complaint claiming the segregated classes draw on stereotypes that men are active and independent while women are passive and dependent. According to that complaint, boys are seated shoulder to shoulder while the females are placed in face-to-face seating arrangements. The theory is that the males should not have to make eye contact as they are more competitive than girls. Where do you stand on this issue?
As you can see, this school does not allow male and female students to interact during the school day. And if the parents of these students have a problem with the gender-segregated learning style, they're encouraged to transfer to another district. Huffman Middle School and other schools considering gender segregation should consider the social ramifications on young boys and girls. According to Ellie Mulcahy, a former teacher and researcher at education think tank LKM Co., gender-segregated schools do more to keep gender stereotypes alive than they effectively educate the children there. Mulcahy went on to state that this not only reinforces damaging gender stereotypes, but is a disaster for students who don't conform to stereotypical expectations and leads to both boys and girls missing out on potentially beneficial learning experiences. There is little evidence to suggest that gender differences have an important effect on academic ability or learning preferences. Indeed, any discernible difference is tiny in comparison to the wide variation within groups of boys and groups of girls. Ellie Mulcahy was educated in an all-girls school in the UK between the ages of 11 and 18 and still has issues with the idea of gender segregation in classrooms. Coeducational opportunities provide important social interactions beginning at a young age and teach lessons about respect and equality. Without this important interaction, boys and girls might be stunted in their social and emotional growth due to lack of understanding of the opposite sex. How will these children know how to make friends with members of the opposite sex if they are deprived of this important interaction? When these children grow up and enter higher education or the workforce, they will be forced to interact with members of the opposite sex, and they need to have the social skills and knowledge about gender equality to be active members of this modern society. If we continue on the path of gender-segregated public schools, antiquated stereotypes will never cease to exist. And this type of education will only further separate men and women in the workforce without addressing issues such as the wage gap, sexual harassment in the workplace, and other office inequalities. I'd like to finish my segment with a quote from the American Civil Liberties Union, which states, "Although these ideas for sex-segregated classrooms are hyped as new discoveries about the brain differences, they are in fact only dressed-up versions of old stereotypes. Creating sex-segregated schools and classrooms is a waste of time and effort that diverts resources from initiatives that actually will improve the education of both boys and girls." such as reducing class sizes and increasing teacher training. Moreover, these sex-segregated classes deprive students of important preparation for the real coeducational worlds of work and family. Rather than offering choice, sex-segregated programs limit the education of both boys and girls.
A new study published in the journal Science says that there is no actual proof that single-sex schools are academically better than schools who have both genders. However, there has been evidence of a negative impact on students who attend and have attended schools with only one gender. I think it is important for our society to consider and work on decreasing the number of these single-sex schools simply because within life it isn't going to be separated like that forever. Today, I hope you all learned the effect that putting students in all boys schools or all girls schools can have on not only the students but also our society and how they interact with others within the society. Students who are in these singular-minded schools normally lack the social and communication skills that are going to be needed throughout their entire life. We all need to remember that separating gender is also damaging to trying to reach gender equality. Gender equality is achieved when men and women receive the same rights and opportunities. Excluding this when it comes to education is not helping. I know that currently it is very unlikely you are thinking about whether your children or future children are going to attend school. However, when the decision comes up, I hope you remember what you learned. When it's time for you or your friends or your family members to select a school, I challenge you to consider serious issues and what the overall best fit might be when picking a school, rather than focusing on gender. The lasting effect of having your students surrounded by one gender is not to be taken lightly. American Civil Liberties Union said, "Real life is not separated by gender. Some of the most important life lessons learned in school is learning from the different sexes, races, and religions. Sex-segregated education goes in the wrong direction by diminishing real diversity in education." I will leave you with this thought. If your child is like you and attends a public university in the future, you should ask yourself, how would my child adapt to college life after spending 12 academic years interacting with one gender? Thank you for your time and thank you for watching.
Do you want to go on a date or something?
What?
I
do not know you. What are you doing?
You want to hang out sometime?
Sure.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Well, good day on you, you know?
Yeah.
The sun's dancing down on him just right.
Wait, what are you talking about?
You're really pretty.
Thank you.
Do you want to hang out with me sometime?
I don't know. I don't really know you. Now, to go to class.
Okay. Have a good one.
Bye.
I just thought you were kind of cute. Just wondering if you wanted to hang out or something.
What?
Just wondering if you wanted to hang out or something.
Hang out.
Yeah.
When?
Just this weekend maybe.
What's your name?
Juan.
Katarina.
Nice to meet you. So do you think I can just get your number or something? We'll hang out. All right.
That was so bad.
What are you talking about? Could I catch Meat Mop at on Monday? Shit. Couldn't find a cloud in the sky if you tried.
Okay.
Stupid. Do you want to go on a date or something?
I don't really know you.
Maybe we can get to know each other or something.
Give me your phone.
All right, I'll see you on the flip side.
Bye. No, give me Knuckles.
Excuse me. I was just, thought that was a nice dress. And, okay. Do you want to like go get dinner?
I'd love to have a boyfriend though. So.
Alright.
Yeah.
Alright, well, thanks anyways though.
I'm very flattered. Okay.
You wanna get like some soup sometime or something?
Well, right now I have a class at 3, so I kind of have to hurry and get there.
How about like tomorrow, maybe?
Tomorrow, yeah.
Okay.
You can get my number if you'd like.
All right. That's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
You know, we should probably like soak up the sun or something.
What?
I was just trying to. You're hot. Shit.